Hey guys, this is Insurance and Finance live from the headquarters of Digital Scouting in Hamburg, Germany, and the beautiful city of Tel Aviv. Today we have a special guest, it's Daniel Schreiber. And first of all, I would like to say happy birthday to you and especially your company, Lemonade. How is it to be 4 years old?
Thanks, Robin. Great to be with you. It's wonderful. You know, it came and went. The 4th anniversary of our launch came and went almost without us noticing it. I kind of woke up the night before and I wrote to Shai, hey, do you realize tomorrow is our 4th anniversary? So we quickly put something together. But yeah, it's been 4 years. It's flown by. It's absolutely flown by.
And I remember seeing the YouTube video where you uploaded your smooth application and claims process. And I remember the goosebumps I had the moment I saw it. I think some winter day it was in a very gray insurance office. And I ran to my CTO and said, you need to do something like that too. And it did not happen, funnily enough. But let's look back at the last 4 years. What was the biggest surprise and what were your biggest learnings looking at the success story?
Wow. I think if I pick up where your story left off. So when I think maybe 2 years ago, certainly 3 years ago or more, when you asked executives, the C-suite of large insurance companies about Lemonade, I think they would pay us the backhanded compliment of saying, well, they've got a neat app. Okay, you know, that's cool. And they're good at PR.
Yeah.
And the implication was they really don't get insurance. These are people out of the tech space. They don't understand how much there is to know. Look at their loss ratio. You know, anybody can put a pretty website and tell a story. And I think what the big, I don't want to say surprise because this was our aspiration, but the big relief for us is that an important part of our thesis played out that wasn't self-evident at the beginning, and it's the following. And I spoke about this back then as well, but I don't think I was taken very seriously then. I think about what we're doing as an iceberg in the middle of the sea. And with the iceberg, you see 10% of the iceberg peaks above the waterline and 90% of it is submerged. And I think that the stuff that you could see 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that lovely app and that experience, and Maya the bot and claims in 3 seconds, and a pink logo and a juvenile name, all that stuff was apparent then. That's the 10% that you see above the waterline.
Yeah.
And what I think people didn't understand is that when you shift from a human substrate to a digital one, when you replace a human broker with a digital bot, it has much deeper implications because the whole data architecture changes dramatically. And at the end of the day, insurance is really about monetizing data.
Yeah.
It is really about monetizing probability theory, which is about using data to predict and to create models for the future. And now, so just to finish the thought, so 4 years later, I think people begin to begin to understand and to see the 90% that is submerged. Now that our loss ratio has come down from 300 to last quarter was in the 60s, probably the fastest decline in loss ratio ever in insurance, people are beginning to say, well, one second, maybe this whole data thing, maybe it goes deeper than just a neat app that people can enjoy and that's playful and that lowers costs. Maybe it actually transforms the heft, the big stuff, the business of insurance, underwriting and pricing risk. And I think that's the exciting part. I think that 5 years from now, we're not known as the company that had a great app and that paid claims in 3 seconds. We're known as the company who used all that data and all that technology to think anew about the 21st century way to price and underwrite risk.
You said 4 years ago you did not know a lot of things, also when it came to data, even though you set up the whole structure and system to make it to the core of Lemonade. Were there some data points that really surprised you when the customer data came floating in?
Yeah, yes. So this is rough maths.
Yeah, totally.
How you count these things, but when you sit in front of a broker and you buy, say, homeowners insurance, you'll usually be asked something between 20 and 30 or 40 questions. And that's how many data points your insurance company will gather. When you deal with a digital interaction like Maya, a bot, talking about something like 1,700 data points that we collect. Now, it's not exactly apples to apples, but it turns out that a lot of things that when you and I talk, you intuitively sense about me. Is he being truthful? Is he not being truthful? Is he paying attention? Is he playing with his phone? Loads of things that could be signals are lost in a normal, traditional broker-based interaction, not lost in a digital interaction. And what we found is that those things do amount to highly predictive data sets. Some of them are really bold. So I'll give you a few for examples. I'll give you for examples. Would you imagine that there is a difference between somebody who searches for good insurance on Google and somebody who searches for cheap insurance on Google? Is that a signal? Is it a signal that somebody who buys insurance at 2 a.m. versus 2 p.m.? Somebody who reads the policy versus somebody who signs it sight unseen? Somebody who asks questions versus somebody who doesn't ask questions? Somebody who is in and out in 30 seconds versus somebody who spends 20 minutes on the process, etc., etc., etc. Does somebody coming from Google have a different loss ratio to somebody coming from Facebook, to somebody being referred by a friend? And onward and onward and onward. And we know the answers to all of those questions.
Wow. Feel free to share them all here. I think people would get their pen out because as you guys know, I work for an online gaming company and we predicted things like that too, but to do it into an insurance space is a little bit trickier. So I think that's something every actuary now is, getting really excited, I think. By the way, everybody out there, I see here first greetings coming here from Hamburg or here from France. Joel saying hi. And by the way, if you have questions to Daniel, please do not hesitate to ask them on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, or on our own website. So don't hesitate to ask your questions. We had a nice beginning. I said happy birthday, which is, a nice gesture, I think. It was just the, preparation for the mean question I ask now. And the mean question is, you have a very impressive track record in product, in insurance, internationalization, but also in fundraising and IPO. Respect for that. But the big question is, when are you going to make money and paying the investors back?
Yeah, that's not a mean question. That's a fine question, Robin. You're going to have to try harder if you really want to get mean. Let's break that apart. So, of course, investors aren't really the question because our investors have done spectacularly well. So they're not worried. Early investors made, 4,000% return in 4 years. That's not the issue.
Danny, I'm not sure if you remind our first meeting in San Francisco. It was, I think, 2016 or 2017. And I asked you, do you need a little bit of something? And you said, no, Robin, we're fine. I really regret that you did not say, Robin, write me something. Just kidding aside. Yeah.
No, that's fine. But now, of course, you can. Yes. At any rate, so I'm saying that the investors, we're not worried about the investors. But let's address the substance of your question. I feel that the unit economics and the fundamentals of our business are actually already in a fabulous place, but the optics are not, and I'd like to talk you through it so you really understand it. And there's a couple of things at play here that are unusual in insurance, and therefore it's unfamiliar, and therefore it's worth spending a minute really trying to understand it. One is the way that we attract customers, the way we acquire customers. So most consumer-focused insurance is sold through agents of one kind or another. And the way that is financed is by sharing a commission with them on an ongoing basis. So if I'm one of the large insurance companies and you're my agent, you'll get whatever, say 15%. Either you or maybe it's a shopping comparison site that will get 15%. Somebody's going to get 15% plus minus a few percentage points, and they're going to get it for a long time. In fact, they'll be my partners for life. The good news is I won't have any upfront or have modest upfront costs to acquire your business. The bad news is I've now got a drag on my unit economics for all the years that you're with me as a customer. That's not how Lemonade works. With Lemonade, we don't really have those partners that we drag along with us over the time. We work with a customer directly. We own that customer relationship 100%. The downside is we pay for it, and we pay for it in one go and upfront. So we acquire our customers by spending all the dollars you collapse all those costs that other people will spend over the life of the interaction. With us, we spend them all in the first minute. So we'll advertise on Google or Facebook and other channels, and that is our customer acquisition cost. Now, already today, when we spend money, if we spend, for argument's sake, €1 to acquire you as a customer, we'll only spend that if we believe that we will make more than €1 from you. In fact, materially more. In the high-tech world, they call that the CAC to LTV ratio, the customer acquisition cost to the lifetime value. We feel very comfortable with our ratio of LTV to CAC today. So we are only spending money on products, on territories, and on customers that we believe are going to be long-term profitable to our business. The key word is long-term. And we really see ourselves as having lifetime interactions with our customers, even if we spend up front. And here's the second catch. So the first catch is we take our poison up front. Being front loaded. The second one is we're growing very fast. It's unusual to see insurance companies grow 100% a year. But think through what that means. If you're growing at 100% a year, that means that most of your customers are less than a year on your book. And that means that you are constantly bearing those expenses up front. Even if it's profitable, even if it's going to pay back 10 times over, you're not going to see it this year. So as we have that business model and are growing at this rate, it will appear like the unit economics are upside down, but they're not. You're making long-term investments that are going to return, we expect, very handsomely, but just not within the one calendar year, which is how accounting principles guide us. The other thing I would say, just to complete the picture, is, so that's really the key to understanding it. The second thing I'd say is, even if you don't want to think like that, you want to think just traditional insurance, our loss ratio is on par, 4 years in market, is on par with the best, most established players in the United States. And now to think that we're not going to make more money than them, you'd have to believe that the cost of running our business is worse than a traditional player. It's a stretch. We employ between a fifth and a 15th the number of people that large players do because of the technology. So I think you don't have to have a huge leap of faith. Even if you just look at, combined ratios, you don't need to believe too much to see that this is a fundamentally profitable business, but just that the massive growth that we're experiencing creates distortions that you have to play out over time to really see how they make sense over time. Does that make sense?
Totally. And again, I think the way how to acquire a customer and to have the cost upfront, I think a lot of traditional insurers have this cost upfront too when they acquire new customers, not in the performance marketing way, but in a traditional marketing way. But since they do not track a lot, it's very difficult for them to allocate. So that would be my take on that. But I think it's a super interesting it's not only strategy, but actually, explanation for that. And a lot of performance marketing cases are in that way. What is super interesting is customer loyalty in that segment, because we are not talking about online games which have a lifetime of a few months, maybe a year or two, but insurance can be years and years and years. And that can be a lot of fun if you look at the numbers. Another point I would like to make, we have a hot discussion in the industry about, and by the way, thank you all out there for the questions. We will go to the questions very soon, but I've one more question for Daniel. I want to go get it out there first, which is a lot of people say insurance need to be pushed into the market. And you were spending a lot of money in performance marketing. What do you say? Can insurance product also something people like to buy?
Much more than is traditionally thought. And I think it varies from product to product. So there are some products that probably the received wisdom holds true for. But I have to tell you that in products like our renter's insurance or property insurance in Europe, we're finding that it's an impulse buy.
Yeah.
We're actually seeing that people are buying it without having intended to buy it that day. They are browsing on Twitter, they see something interesting, they saw a news item, their friends on Facebook sent some, that funny movie that you liked from 4 years ago or other things, and they're curious, or they read about the B Corp or the give back or something piques their interest, and then they click, and then suddenly they're chatting to Maya, this impish, cheerful, funny bot that is asking them a few playful questions and suddenly gives them a quote that surprises them. And they didn't intend to buy insurance that day, but suddenly it's like €7, and they're like, wow, I really should have insurance. And they end up buying insurance, and then they are, as you say, a customer for life. They've had a great experience. The claims is done in seconds. And then as they grow, their needs grow as well. And hopefully we're there to service those needs over time. So yes, we are seeing people buy insurance as an impulse buy. The median time to buy a policy with Lemonade is 90 seconds. So think about it. If you're in Starbucks or in your coffee shop and you order that latte and you're then standing by the counter to get it, that's about 90 seconds. That's how long it takes to get insurance. If you're, so you make it playful, you make it seamless, make it instantaneous, and you fundamentally change the behaviors.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the big opportunity or the big actually break point for traditional insurers. I recall the last insurance policies I bought, they were slightly longer than 90 seconds. And I just joked with a friend of mine who was here in the office just a few minutes ago, and I said, you know, I wrote one of my insurers an email in May and they did not answer yet. So let's see how that one plays out. Yeah, but let's go to a few questions or the comments from around the world. We have here Philip in Canada, Pietro in Italy. We have even somebody from Taipei saying hi. So and from Swiss Re, so the reinsurers also watching Lemonade, of course. Yeah, let's go and talk also about internationalization. And for example, Joel asks also what's going on in France. But a smart person once analyzed that, you know, a lot of insurers around the world stay close to the ecosystem. So not a lot of American insurers are in Europe, not a lot of European insurers in America, and the Asian insurers, not even to talk about that. But you crossed the Atlantic. How did that happen? And how did you do it so easily?
It's a great question. So time will tell if it was a smart thing to do, but I think the interesting thing at this point is to say it was not a particularly dangerous thing to do. So it is this curious thing, right? So as you said, all the brands in Europe stop at the water's edge, all the American brands stop at the water's edge. But a lot of millennial brands don't. Airbnb doesn't, and Uber doesn't, and Spotify is global. And why? And Netflix is global. You know, all of these brands that manage to transcend borders. And part of our thinking is that when you think about, and I don't love millennials, but if you think about young consumers, digital-enabled consumers in Hamburg or in London or in Berlin or in San Francisco, I think they have more in common with each other than they do with their host environments. And they're all using the same apps. They're all communicating on WhatsApp, et cetera, et cetera. So our thesis about globalization is rooted in two things. One is that the value proposition of Lemonade is universal. Instant insurance that's transparent, socially responsible, and fun. Show me a citizen of the world who doesn't want that. I just don't believe that that is a localized thing. And then the second thing is that global expansion isn't particularly dangerous for us. It's not a bet the company move. You think about I don't know your city well enough to talk about yours, but you think about the skyline of major cities around the world, and it's all insurance. You've got the Swiss Re building in London. You've got the Trans-American building in San Francisco, and you've got the MetLife building dominating New York, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems to be that the way insurance companies operate is they come into town, they build the tallest building, and they stick 10,000 people in it. And if we had to do that in Germany, we wouldn't have done it. In Germany, which is the first market we launched outside of the United States, we have 0 employees. But even within the United States, our largest market is California. It's also the most populous state. We have 0 employees in California. The second largest market.
How do you do it? I mean, I can figure a few sales C-suits, operations C-suits that say that's a pretty interesting cost principle. How do you do it, and how is that even possible? And what's your tips for people out there?
So it's really about what is the. This sounds like an oversimplification, but I encourage people to make it. What is the platform? What is the stuff upon which your company is built? For us, we are built on digital.
Yeah.
You put people on top of digital, but the platform is digital. I think we hired our first IT person about 2 months ago. We didn't have an IT budget. We don't think of IT as a thing. We build our company using technology.
Okay.
Insurance companies typically have the other way around. They're built on people.
Yeah.
And then they've got a big IT department that is a black hole. I think what we're building is a black box. And they've got a black hole into which they pour billions of dollars a year in the hope that something will get better. And I'm not saying that disparagingly. Honestly, when you're built over time, if you were built in the 1800s, that's what it looks like over time. There's nothing. Smart people, I wouldn't have done any better. This isn't a criticism. It's the difficulty of incumbency.
Yeah.
So, but us starting from scratch in the 21st century, you build it all digitally. And in California, we have so many customers, but we don't need to be a physical presence. Just like Spotify probably has 0 employees in California.
Probably, yeah.
Netflix is headquartered there, but there are probably 0 employees in Hamburg. So
but a lot of viewers.
A lot of viewers. You get the idea.
Yeah, totally. So I think that's something super interesting, because if you have your processes and also your whole infrastructure in such a way, it's copyable and you can export it without needing to open offices somewhere else. We actually know from several mid-sized players around here that are working in their niche on something similar, but they need to go through a lot of pain into getting rid of the IT legacy systems, which are not, replicable in such an easy way. But another, mean question I thought about is you mentioned it, incumbents also have a lot of smart people working. It's not all, it's not all that they're all like the C-suite I mentioned at the beginning. They have a lot of smart, super strategic people there. But in these 4 years, we have not seen a single big incumbent. Let's just take the smaller outside, but the big incumbents putting a little bit of something cash on the table and really doing something similar. Why?
First, I agree with you. I think they're led by good people and by very smart people and by people who understand the challenges very, very well. I've been very impressed by their leadership. But honestly, Robin, this is the classic innovator's dilemma. You just have to read that book because it's chapter for chapter what's going on here. And I meet with some of the CEOs of the largest insurance companies in the world. And what I learned is there's no problem with them. They're great. Yeah. But they have a machine. And I remember speaking to one of the CEOs and he was talking to me about his difficulties. And he actually said to me, I fancy your chances better than I fancy my own, which was kind of a shocking thing for him to say. And he was talking about his difficulties. And I said to him, what do you want? You're just the CEO. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, these companies it starts with places that you would expect, but it continues to places that you wouldn't. So the stuff that you'd expect is you've got 40,000 brokers.
Yeah.
Until 10 years ago, you thought that was a huge asset. Now suddenly it feels like a liability. It used to be, we have 40,000 brokers, and today it's like, we have 40,000 brokers. The whole tone changes.
Yeah.
They've been building technology since the 1980s.
Yeah.
And that used to be a source of pride. Hey, we've been building technology since the 1980s. And suddenly the tone switches to, we've got this technology from the 1980s, and it's a crisis. And they've got 100 million customers on this platform. What are they going to do? Yeah. Just trade it out? They can't do that. Yeah. They've got a culture. They've been cultivating a leadership team with a culture of legacy preservation. Yeah. What they really need is a culture of risk-taking and business transformation. You can't transform business cultures like that. And the reason I said it goes deeper is because what I found is it starts off with their shareholders and their board of directors.
Yeah.
You get the shareholders you deserve. A shareholder who invests in Lemonade expects us to do certain things. Shareholders who invest in the large insurance companies want their 5% dividend year in, year out. Don't confuse me with anything else. And that then gets reflected in who's on the board of directors, which means that the CEO looks down and he or she doesn't have support for transformation. Yep. And look up and they don't have support for transformation. They're just the CEO. And I've seen that play out time and time again.
Yeah, I totally agree that culture is key and explains a lot. But I see especially smaller players, mid-sized players, a few hundred, a few thousand people, led by interesting decision makers that are now really doing crazy things. And I think we will hear over average growth in a lot of countries from these players that are led by also a new generation, I think. I think especially the larger ones have big problems. You talked about legacy IT, and your app, you released it. It was really it had shockwaves around the world, I think, but in a positive way. I quoted my goosebumps I had when I saw that. But 4 years is some time, and I would have expected, but also others here in the chat actually asked it here, that insurance should more become more a life manager and assistance. We have not seen that move also in your own app. Will we see that, or what is the explanation of that?
So there's actually been a fair amount of movement in that direction, and I'll give you a sense of it. But let me be clear: what guides us is not a desire to change things. That's fine. Mm-hmm. What guides us is the consumer. We are a consumer-centric business, and what we wake up every morning to do is not to say, "Oh, what cool shit can we build today?" And it's not how can we upset the insurance industry today. It's how can we delight our consumers today.
Yeah.
And in these 4 years, we have now risen in America to be the #1 rated in terms of customer satisfaction in 4 years. It's a source of great pride, but it is born of this fanatical focus on how do we delight consumers. So we're not going to build bots or things for the sake of it. We're going to build it if it helps consumers. But we have done a lot of stuff that may not be self-evident. So yeah, you saw Maya selling you a policy 3 or 4 years ago. You saw Jim paying your claims. But today, about a third of all our interactions in between those, so customer questions that come in pre-purchase or post-purchase, are now automated. And a couple of years ago, that was 0. So we have been having humans answer, because when the technology, we want to just make sure the customer gets the best experience. If a bot can do it, a bot, if not a human. What's been happening is that as the humans have been answering these questions, the bot has been looking over their shoulder, has been using that training data set, and now about a third, and I'm not talking about asking information. These aren't Google searches. These are actions. Hey, I'm moving house. I want to cancel my old policy, and I need a new policy starting in January for this new address. No human interaction. The bot picks that up, understands it, natural language processing, no problem, da-da-da-da-da. I want to add my wife to my policy. Cool, what's her name? Let me add a few. All of these kind of things are now automated and done by bots. So a lot of that has happened.
Yeah.
Even more invisible, what's been happening is we're using bots internally within Lemonade. So we have another bot that you will never see, but we use every day. His name is Cooper.
Yeah.
And Cooper does amazing things that humans had to do before, or we just couldn't do before. So for example, very topical, loads of wildfires in California.
Yeah.
Cooper gets twice a day raw data from NASA satellites that are overflying continental US, and he'll use machine vision to analyze them, looking for wildfires, and take precautionary measures in response, and he'll do that for other weather patterns as well. And so many of our internal processes are being managed in the same way by bots or by automation. So there has been a tremendous amount done, but the consumer experience has been great on day one. It's great now. Behind the scenes, deep transformation.
Yeah, and by the way, don't get me wrong, but I also tested when the app was available in Germany. We tested it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't see my house," because you really integrated the own house behind the scenes. That was a lot of need and a lot of love flows into the app, but I couldn't resist the question. By the way, to the audience, you posted a lot. Don't hesitate to also ask one last question, because time is almost up. Don't hesitate to ask question. One maybe when we come to internationalization, Joel from France asks, are you going to expect to change the game in France, or a little bit more like, how has France treated you so far?
We haven't launched in France. We just announced that next quarter we will. So Joel, thank you for your question, but I'll punt on that one until I have some data to share with you. As of now, it's just been an announcement.
Okay, we're excited. And I have a lot of questions I could now ask next, considering internationalization, but I won't, because I know you're not allowed to tell it. Yes, so that's that. I think, we had a great discussion here, and I'm very thankful for you that you took the time. Time is running up. And again, thank you very much, everybody, for participating on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. And if you have not liked or shared this chat yet, do it and show that you love this chat so that the algorithm knows it, because also these social media channels rely on the algorithms, and you should show your love to that. Daniel, it has a true pleasure. Is there anything the community can do for you now, while you shared so many insights into Lemonade and into the insurance industry?
Absolutely. I'd love some sales out of this, Robin. I'd love everybody
to
pull out your phone, go to lemonade.com and check us out. Let's get some sales going. Thank you.
Very cool, very cool, very cool. All right. Thank you very much, guys. And don't hesitate to ask your another questions. We will answer them in writing, and also sign up for a WhatsApp reminder for the next shows. All right, Daniel, thank you.